team of people working together to make this happen. This is exactly the type of program that we want in the city of Carson. Okay, having said that, we'll go to a vote. I think we have a motion by Councilman Santorino. Who seconded that? Mr. Robles. And turn off that man's microphone. Okay. This is to approve staff recommendation. Please cast your vote now. The vote is unanimous, Madam Clerk. For the record, put down 5-0. Thank you. Now we're going to go to item number 11. Item 11 is a non-action item. It's actually a receive and file. It's consideration to provide a progress report on the oil code update. There was a request to be pulled by Councilwoman Davis Holmes, so let's give Councilwoman Davis Holmes the floor.
Thank you. When I was reading this report, Mr. City Manager, I had some of the same concerns that some of the speakers had spoke before, and about us updating our land use ordinance and then Oxy paying for it, because really it has nothing to do with them. So I just need an I forgot to ask you this in the meeting when I met with you, but it's all highlighted in circle. And that was a concern that I had, that they had expressed to me. I did meet with our assistant city attorney before she left. But could you give me some clarification? Why would they be paying for our land use? And I know we do some major negotiations here, but...
Right. It's a fair question. I understand why the residents would have concern about the appearance. But what they have to understand is that this consultant firm was selected by the city. Mm-hmm. This consulting firm was selected by the city staff, not by Occidental. This consultant firm is under the direction of the city staff, not Occidental. This consulting firm works solely for the city of Carson, not Occidental. This consulting firm takes direction only from city staff, not Occidental. Occidental is paying for it because we have to amend our zoning code so that we can have it to be the best standard possible for today's oil drilling regulations. Our current standards need improvement. They happen to be paying for it because they have a project, and we need to have codes that reflect best standards. But this consulting firm is in no way under the direction of Occidental. They are not taking direction from Occidental. They are simply, Occidental simply funding the effort. And this firm, incidentally, is prohibited from working for Occidental for a certain amount of time if they take this job, to prevent a further conflict down the road.
They worked for them in the past, do you know?
No, they have not.
Okay.
Let me double check that.
I believe that there was a conflict waiver.
Okay, the city attorney's chiming in here, and let's get the city manager's staff to address that specific question.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, they have not worked for Oxy. However, they have worked on projects, on EIR projects that Oxy has owned. So same arrangement that we have in the city. Basically, the consultant gets hired by the city. It gets paid by the applicant, but they did not directly work for Oxy. They just worked on one of their projects for the city.
Well, let me ask you this. When they submit a bill for services rendered, does the city of Carson write them a check and pay it, and we get reimbursed by Occidental, or does Occidental write the check?
They basically give us a deposit, and we put that deposit in an account. And when MRS gives us invoices, we pay that the invoices
with a city of Carson check.
Exactly.
Okay, that's better.
Well, that is the perception. Approximately, how much do you think this is going to cost?
We believe it's going to cost about $350,000, including staff time.
And so they agreed to pay for this because of your negotiation skills, Mr. City Manager and the City Attorney?
Absolutely.
because of the Oxy, well, why?
Well, as I told one of the citizens at the break when we said we'd answer this question to try to calm their fears, you know, they've given us enough grief right now, so they get to pay for that fact. And I'm being tongue-in-cheek about that.
He can't hear you.
It is very typical in these kinds of projects for the applicant to make a deposit which will reimburse the city all costs necessary to make that project happen. One of the elements that needs to make this project happen, in addition to a development agreement, in addition to reviewing the EIR, in addition to responding to comments of the EIR, in addition to bringing the EIR for public hearing, is we need to update our municipal code regarding oil and gas regulations. So all of that is a part of this project. Now, it is true that the development agreement will be unique to Oxy, the EIR certification process will be unique to Oxy, but the oil and gas ordinance update will apply to all oil producers that are operating in Carson. So it is true that this will have a citywide benefit, but it's a necessary update as a part and parcel of the process of considering this project at all. So it makes sense for this applicant to be paying for that process, in our opinion. Can I also, while we're on that subject, respond to one of the other concerns, and that is noticing requirements? The city gives the noticing requirements that are required by law to provide notice of public hearings on the development agreement or the EIR certification or the ordinance to upgrade the oil and gas ordinance to every address in the city. We're not talking about every resident, we're talking every address. It is extremely expensive. So I think one of the reasons that I have never known a city to do that in my 35 years of practicing law, but I think certainly one of the reasons we don't give that kind of notice is because of its cost. But this city has an extremely transparent process. Every council agenda item is posted on the internet, complete with a staff report and all attachments. So if the community monitors that and has computer access to it, in addition to the notice that's required by law, there's a good chance that you're going to know what's happening in this community. So.
Okay, this item, as we said, came when we had this big meeting over the community center, and as a result, I requested that we have these community meetings. One of the speakers said that the mailers had only gone to certain areas in Carson. Is there a reason for that? Because if you're only mailing to the north end of the city where the Oxy project is proposed, what are you saying? It gives the impression that this ordinance is just to deal with them when in fact it's not. So why wouldn't the entire city, because we're talking about a land use ordinance for the entire city, why wouldn't all the residents be invited to this meeting?
All the residents are certainly invited.
Mailed.
And we can give mailed notice if you want to do that. And I don't know what that would cost.
Impressions are everything. Yeah, you're sending out messages.
I get that. Do we have any idea what it would cost to give mail notice to every address in the city?
Stamp cost, which is 42 cents, 43 cents, plus paper, another 25 cents, staff time.
Okay, I'm going to chime in here. There isn't another way to notify all the addresses. You can ask the water company or Edison company or or gas company to accommodate us with a courtesy notice, and every address who has any utilities will get that notice from the city of Carson, and then you don't have to pay for postage.
It may be too late, Mr. Mayor, for that, because
there is a bulk rate. There are other ways of being creative and doing this. You could, you carrier sort it. You could bulk rate it. You could. There's a service where you can just simply give it to every address without having the name of the person living at that house. There are services the post office has to allow that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just saying that it should be to the entire city because you're talking about an ordinance that's supposed to affect the entire city. So if that is the case, and that was the intent when we discussed this, it should not just go to the north where the Oxy project is proposed. It just shouldn't do that because you're mailing to the north and Oxy's paying the bill. So that gives the impression that's, you know, what our speakers were saying earlier. So, I mean, if it's for the entire city, I don't think we all should get into cost all the time. You're talking about a 45-cent stamp and the mayor's giving you some alternatives. Everyone in the city should be notified, in my opinion.
So we could do, Councilman, we could do a postal patron at a lot less expensive. That's another way of
Yeah,
doing it. It
whatever
goes
they-
to every single address
It
in the
should.
city. And then you don't have to pay the first-class postage. So there are ways of doing that that makes it less expensive.
So I would like staff to
No problem.
explore that opportunity and make sure that all addresses in Carson is notified and then invited to, because our first meeting is on August 21st at the Juanito Middle and McDonald Community Center. So we will operate in a small window here, but it can happen. Can't means you won't.
Now, normally this is done within, 500 feet of a project? Is that what you usually do, Saeed?
Yes, but we've not done that with the Oxy IR. We've not done that with the moratorium noticing because that wouldn't even get out of the technology center, the industrial part.
This is not an Oxy.
Yeah.
It's a land use. It's not Oxy.
So wherever there's oil wells, you should definitely, they're not oil wells everywhere in this. One of the previous speakers said there are oil wells all over the city. No, there are oil wells in the north and there are oil wells in the south. But in the center of Carson, basically no oil wells. There's no oil wells on Carson High School campus. She's mixing it up with possibly Beverly Hills High School. They do have oil well on their campus, but we don't. And so, where there are oil wells, people certainly should be notified.
But it goes.
So maybe we should do the whole city, but I'm just saying that there are ways of doing the whole city without putting first-class postage on it so that everyone gets notified. Are we in agreement of that?
We're in agreement to it because, you keep saying Oxy. It's not an Oxy project. We're looking at a land use ordinance for the city of Carson, 22 square miles.
Yeah, we understand. The only reason that we were planning on notifying the people that up north, 7,000 mailers, is that we just want it to be consistent because these folks have been involved in a process and will
They've been
continue that.
involved in the Oxy process. They have not been involved in the citywide land use ordinance as this is what this is supposed to address. The Oxy project is different from this land use, and I think we're mixing apples and oranges. It's just so happened that we're dealing with Oxy at the same time.
That's correct, Councilwoman. We will get on that tomorrow morning.
Thank
Okay,
you.
here's what we're going to do.
We'll do
I'm
some
going to order
mailings.
this notice to go to every address in the city, okay, which includes business addresses. And I want to certainly thank the councilwoman for bringing this forward to make sure everyone gets a notification. We're going to direct staff to do this at the most economical way. You can research that without us debating it all tonight. And just as long as everyone gets a notice, official notice from the city of Carson on this community meeting. Now I'm going to order this without objection unless there's an objection. No objection? So ordered. Done.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we are on this agenda item still. It is a receive and file, but does anyone else have anything to say about the oil code update? If not, I'll order you do? Okay, let's go to Councilmember Robles and then Councilmember Gibson in that order.
You can take me off. We beat this horse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to address one final point that was brought up by the speakers. I actually sat with the attorney for Occidental Petroleum, and his very argument for not wanting Occidental Petroleum not to pay for it was because it was for not just the Oxy project, but it was for all oil and gas extraction in the city. And his argument, remember, Occidental doesn't want to spend money doing this. They don't want to pay for this. His argument is that because these other entities are going to be the beneficiaries of this, and it's not just for Occidental Petroleum shouldn't have to pay for it, which I think is interesting. That's the very same argument that members of the audience were using to not have Occidental Petroleum pay for it. It's like, they say politics may strange bedfellows, but that was a Twilight Zone episode right there for me. I mean, seeing the people who are opposed to the project arguing on the side of Occidental Petroleum. And I know some may take offense to that. That was humor. I apologize if I offended anyone for saying that.
All I have to say is, Councilman, welcome to Carson, California. Okay, Councilman Gibson has the floor next.
I'm complete.
Okay. Couldn't follow up on that, huh? Okay. I'm going to order this item received and filed without objection. No objection, so ordered.